So, funny story. Um, One of our videos got flagged for containing disinformation. And as you can imagine, like many of the social media companies, they're very responsive when you have questions. So the problem is that we have no idea what specifically they're referring to. What we do know is that we didn't say anything that contained it. It's kind of our thing, We don't do that. We tell the truth and we use facts. So what we figured out is what got flagged was the content of clips of video we were playing of other people saying things that were disinformation. So it kind of puts us in a bit of a bind, doesn't it? We are trying to report accurately on what's going on in the world and what our so-called leaders are saying about what's going on in the world. For example, like the Ukraine-Russia situation, um, the rule of law, climate change, et cetera, things that really require us to be able to help everybody sift through what is being spewed at us at an alarming rate on a daily basis. So, how do we do that if by reporting what other people are saying, because what they're saying has enormous influence and an enormous impact on the rest of our lives, if when we do that, we get flagged for putting out videos that contain disinformation. And meanwhile, they in real time are the ones spreading it. It's a bit of a dilemma. And quite honestly, independent media already have at least a hand and a half tied behind their backs. I mean, I think we do. So now maybe we have both hands tied behind our backs, but we're going to figure it out. But I just wanted to alert you to this conundrum because once again, it gives the bad guys the advantage. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this evening's episode of Mary Trump Live. It is wonderful to have you here. I should call us the almost always punctual Mary Trump Live. Anyway, it is good to be back on a Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. See, I'm trying to keep track of those days ending in Y. So I kind of feel like Donald has given enough of himself to Vladimir Putin. I really do. I mean, what a guy. He's just so generous with his handler. The guy who's holding his leash and tugging it every once in a while. It's very impressive. Today, from 9 to 11 this morning, Donald and Putin had a phone call to discuss Russia's illegal invasion of a democratic sovereign nation known as Ukraine. Take a look.
We are following some breaking news in Washington following a high-stakes phone call between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin over the war in Ukraine. In a statement out moments ago, the White House says, quote, the movement to peace will begin with an energy and infrastructure ceasefire. This morning's hour-and-a-half call was the first known conversation between the two leaders since Ukraine backed a U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire. The conversation also comes after President Trump said he and Russia were discussing dividing up, quote, certain assets of Ukraine. Notably absent from that call, Ukrainian President Zelensky, who has accused Russia of prolonging the war to extract more concessions from the United States.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for...
We are following some breaking news in Washington following a high-stakes phone call between President Trump...
That was odd. I really don't want to hear that again. Anyway, I'm glad the reporter added the word known in front of conversation with, because we have no idea how often Donald and his handler speak. I also think it was vitally important to point out the fact that the aggrieved party here, the injured party, the invaded country, the leader of that country was not included in what we cannot reasonably call peace talks. The conversation was not at all surprisingly heavily pro-Russia, reinforcing Donald's weak stance toward Putin, which is decades long, while undermining Ukraine and U.S. alliances, but there aren't any anymore. So let's just be realistic about that. The White House and Kremlin released contrasting statements after that lengthy call. I mean, an hour and a half is a pretty long time. I mean, I'm sure Donald wanted to last longer, but Putin's busy. He has more important things to do than talk to Donald. Both sides, again, completely without Ukraine's input, agreed to a 30-day pause on Russian strikes against Ukraine's infrastructure. What a guy Putin is. While Russia continues military operations elsewhere, offering Ukraine little to no relief. The White House framed the call as a step toward lasting peace, emphasizing Donald's desire to improve U.S.-Russia relations, which has never been a priority in this country before since not long after World War II. He also highlighted discussions on a broader ceasefire, Black Sea negotiations, and strategic weapons control, which kind of makes him sound like he knows what he's doing, but he doesn't. Donald also reiterated that Iran must never be in a position to destroy Israel. Okay. I mean, we can agree on that for sure. The Kremlin's version painted Putin as the key decision maker, of course, thanking Donald for his efforts, but insisting that Russia's security demands must be met before a full ceasefire, including an end to foreign military aid to Ukraine and restrictions on Kyiv's mobilization and rearmament take place. Putin also announced a March 19th prisoner exchange of 175 detainees, including 23 wounded Ukrainian soldiers, while making no major concessions in return. I know I use this phrase quite frequently because sadly I have occasion to. Why would he? In an unexpected move, Donald and Putin discussed potential economic cooperation despite ongoing U.S. sanctions on Russia, which I'm pretty sure pre-exist this Trump regime, with Donald suggesting lifting trade restrictions under the guise of quote unquote normalizing relations, unquote, I said, with a country that has been a hostile foreign power to this country for decades. Donald's direct diplomacy, that's an odd synonym for sycophancy, blindsided NATO leaders who were not consulted on the call, while Zelensky publicly pushed back, demanding Europe be included in any future negotiations about Ukraine's future. I wish you all the best of luck with that. I'm pretty sure you will be locked out of any discussions that have to do with your future, because that's the world we're living in now. Notably, the Kremlin also added unexpected details, including Donald's support for U.S.-Russia hockey matches and a joint UN vote on Ukraine. While both sides agree to further so-called expert-level talks, the gulf in their priorities suggests major hurdles remain before an actual peace deal is reached. Well, that just means they understand optics. Like, Donald is a pathetic loser, yes, but he does understand optics. He knows that he can't be seen to cave all at once and immediately, even though he wants to. They have to play this thing out a little bit. They have to head fake some people into thinking that this is a serious negotiation, which again, because Ukraine was absent from it, it isn't. No, we'll get to the point where we find out that Donald and Putin are simply figuring out how best to divide Ukraine's resources between them. Now, while Donald was busy appeasing Putin, the Trump regime was greenlighting another crisis in the Middle East. Today, it was confirmed that Israel consulted the Trump regime before launching a surprise wave of airstrikes across Gaza, resulting in the deaths of at least 404 people. Play the clip.
The White House says that it was consulted about Israel's airstrikes against Hamas in Gaza and voiced support for their actions. More than 400 people, including women and children, are dead after Israel launched new airstrikes overnight. The strikes hit multiple parts of the enclave, including schools where dozens were sheltering. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he ordered the strikes due to a lack of progress in talks to extend the ceasefire.
We will show no mercy on our enemies. Let me be very clear. Israel will not stop until all of our hostages are back home.
Egypt, a key mediator in the ceasefire, called the airstrikes a flagrant violation of the deal, and they called on other world leaders to step in and stop the fighting. Israeli leaders have indicated that the operation was open-ended and was expected to expand. Health officials say since the start of the war, more than 48,000 Palestinians have been killed and around 90% of Gaza's population has been displaced.
Yep. The Wall Street Journal reported that Donald personally gave Israel the go-ahead to resume attacks. For those of you who believed for a second that Donald doesn't like war, and this further escalates the 17-month-long conflict. The renewed fighting jeopardized efforts to secure the release of remaining hostages. Yes, I don't think bombing your enemy into oblivion is the best way to get your families back. Families of hostages slammed the Israeli government for breaking the ceasefire, accusing them of prioritizing war over negotiations for their loved ones' release, because that's exactly what they're doing. The United Nations, Palestinian Authority, and humanitarian groups condemned the attacks, calling for an immediate ceasefire. In a statement by Hadi Mohana, humanitarian coordinator for the occupied Palestinian territory, quote, waves of airstrikes occurred across the Gaza Strip since the early hours of the morning. Initial and unconfirmed reports indicate that hundreds have been killed. This is unconscionable. A ceasefire must be reinstated immediately. People in Gaza have endured unimaginable suffering. An end to hostilities, sustained humanitarian assistance, release of the hostages, and the restoration of basic services and people's livelihoods are the only way forward. While in contrast, far-right Israeli officials celebrated the strikes, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu abandoned the second phase of the ceasefire, caving to pressure from far-right coalition partners. He resumed military operations, solidifying support from extremist figures like Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. This has been going badly for a very long time. This started, of course, with the crimes against humanity committed against Israeli citizens on October 7th. It seems so much longer ago. However, the Israeli response, or I should say the response of the Netanyahu government, has been so extreme and so haphazard and so devoid of any kind of humanity that it is very difficult at this point to suggest that Israel is on the right side of, or I should say, the Netanyahu government is on the right side of this. It doesn't change the horrific things that happened on October 7th. But Netanyahu has managed to make that worse. He has failed his country and his people, and especially the families of those hostages and the hostages themselves, miserably. And it needs to be noted that he did this initially with the quite extraordinary support of the Biden administration. The Biden administration could have put conditions on the massive amounts of aid we continue to give Israel, and they declined. So there's a lot of blame to go around. And it was very difficult in the lead up to the election not to say anything about that. But the reality, of course, is that as horrific as Joe Biden and his administration was in this issue, Donald Trump will always be worse. While Netanyahu escalated violence to appease his far-right allies, the Trump regime was busy defying the rule of law at home. The DOJ issued statements to the judge who's dealing with the deportation of Venezuelans. We reported on this yesterday. The Trump regime has refused to answer, or I should say Donald's DOJ. Let's be accurate. about it, you know. Donald's DOJ refused to answer a federal judge's questions on Monday about whether it violated his order by deporting over 200 alleged members of a Venezuelan gang. A Justice Department lawyer defended the deportations by citing Donald's broad authority under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. The judge is James E. Boasberg, who ordered the DOJ to certify by noon today whether any deportations happened after his ruling. The lawyers from Donald's DOJ complied, filing a sworn declaration from Robert Serna, a top ICE official in Texas. DOJ lawyers, however, pushed back hard, claiming the judge had no justification to request further details on 2 deportation flights that left before his written order. This is not my area, but I don't think that's how you're supposed to behave towards a judge who's overseeing your case. According to Serna's sworn declaration, 3 deportation flights left the U.S. for El Salvador on Saturday, a day after Donald invoked the Alien Enemies Act. He confirmed that 2 flights departed before the judge's written order at 7:25 p.m. Eastern Time, while a third left afterward. Serna, however, insisted those on board had final removal orders and were not deported, quote, solely on the basis of the proclamation at issue, unquote. DOJ lawyers defended the deportations, arguing the first 2 flights had already left U.S. airspace before the ruling and that the judge's oral directive to halt in-flight deportations was, quote, not independently enforceable, unquote. This is very thin ice territory. But also that's just, it's absurd on its face. It's sort of like saying, I, an American citizen, am flying to Europe. So while I'm flying, I am not an American citizen and I am not subject to the laws of the United States of America. Sarah also maintained that ICE thoroughly vetted the deported individuals, which they did not do, denying they were labeled gang members based solely on social media posts, tattoos, or hand gestures. He acknowledged, however, that many had no U.S. criminal records, but argued this was due to their short time in the country. Yes, just give them time. And they, of course, would have proven themselves to be horrible, horrible criminals. And since we can intuit that, then who needs due process, right? Quote, the lack of a criminal record does not indicate they pose a limited threat. It highlights the risk they pose, demonstrating that they are terrorists with regard to whom we lack a complete profile, unquote. Earlier today, Chief Justice John Roberts woke up from his slumbers and issued a rare statement pushing back against Donald's escalating criticism of the federal judiciary. See, when it affects people like you, that becomes problematic, I guess. Roberts said this seemingly in response to Donald's calls to impeach judges who rule against me. Me? Well, that would be weird. Against him. If it were against me, he'd be all for it. Take a look at this clip.
Supreme Court Chief Justice is speaking out after President Trump called for a judge to be impeached. That federal judge is demanding the government explain why it ignored his order blocking the deportations of more than 200 alleged gang members. President Trump posted on social media calling for the judge to be impeached, saying he's radical left lunatic, a troublemaker, and agitator. Now Chief Justice John Roberts is responding.
In a statement a short time ago, he said for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. John Roberts saying, calm down, let's draw a line in the sand. That's why we have a judicial system. If you don't agree with the decision of a judge, you can appeal it, Diane, and that fight is continuing today in that judge's courtroom.
Wow, that statement by Roberts was just fire, wasn't it? You should just go back to sleep for all the good it's going to do, because he is responsible. He and his corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court, they are responsible for the fact that Donald is completely above the law, at least in this country. I just want to explain something quickly because I think it's worth keeping in the back of our minds. What we're dealing with right now is the Alien Enemies Act. This was under the umbrella of something called the Alien and Sedition Act of 1798, which was 4 separate acts. So the one we're talking about, which is currently operative because Donald wants to use it to detain non-citizens. However, originally the act was allowed this only during times of war and invasion, but that's why Donald often uses that word, invasion. And of course, if he needs to, he will just declare an emergency at the border. I mean, I think he already has, but he'll do it officially and claim we are being invaded. And he will therefore justify the use of this very old Alien Enemies Act. First red flag. The other act is the Naturalization Act, which increased the requirements to seek citizenship. Do we seriously think that is not also going to become part of the conversation? And then we had the very oddly named Alien Friends Act, which allows the president to imprison and deport non-citizens. Well, I think we're there already. And finally, the Sedition Act. And this is another red flag potentially heading our way. And we also may already be here. This criminalizes false and malicious statements about the federal government. So I just wanted to leave that there for all of you to consider as we go forward through this nightmare. Also, I want to take a quick second before we go on and ask everybody to leave a comment because these are very important conversations we're having, and it's very important to us to hear what you think. Also, just a quick mention, we're almost at 350,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel because it definitely helps us a lot. And it also helps if you like and share our videos. As mentioned at the top of the show, independent media is really at a huge disadvantage here for a lot of reasons. And the more we grow, the more quickly we grow, the easier it will be for us to overcome those so we can make sure you all stay as informed as you need to be. Thanks. All right. So while Donald ramps up authoritarian attacks on the judiciary, the Trump regime is also seizing control of independent institutions. This time, it's the United States Institute of Peace, which sounds terrifying. The administration, just through DOGE, by the way, through the Department of Government Efficiency, the fake, unconstitutional, illegal agency headed by the fake, illegal, unconstitutional Elon Musk, dismissed most of the board of the USIP and replaced its leadership on Monday as part of a broader effort to target agencies related to foreign assistance. On Friday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State part-time Marco Rubio, and National Defense University President Peter Garvin fired the president and CEO, George Moose. This follows an executive order aimed at reducing USIP and similar organizations. USIP staff reported that personnel from DOGE entered their building despite protests that the organization is independent of the executive branch. Here's CEO George. All right. Well, unfortunately, this is becoming a pattern. 2 weeks ago, U.S. Marshals were called by DOGE to escort members, and I apologize, I can't remember off the top of my head, of another agency having to do with foreign assistance from their building too. Today, it was local DC police officers who were called. It was the U.S. African Development Foundation. I'm so glad that sprang into my head. Today, DOGE called DC police officers. Again, DOGE has no legitimacy, has no real place in the federal government. Neither of these agencies, for different reasons, answered to anybody at DOGE. So that's bad enough, but we know what DOGE has been up to, right? I mean, that's not a surprise. What is deeply alarming is that the U.S. Marshals and the DC police think that is their job to remove citizens from their place of work without any cause whatsoever. I guess they've picked their sides or side. So as Donald tightens his grip on independent institutions, his regime is also erasing history, which, that's been happening for a very long time on the right. This time, they're scrubbing tributes to Black and women veterans from Arlington National Cemetery. So I guess you can serve your country and die for it and be buried in Arlington National Cemetery, but nobody can talk about it anymore. Yeah, the cemetery has begun removing web pages on Black and women veterans in compliance with Donald's executive order banning DEI mentions in government agencies because these people are sick with a disease I do not know can be cured. Previously available educational resources and historical pages have also been erased. Watch this.
We are seeing more fallout after President Trump's executive order taking aim at diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now it's impacting our fallen veterans.
So tonight we're learning that Arlington National Cemetery has begun wiping the histories that highlight Black, Hispanic, and women veterans from its website, taking it off. So we use the website Wayback Machine to show you what the website looked like before the changes. And you can see there were numerous articles highlighting African-American history at the National Cemetery, dedications to the men and women who gave their lives, sacrificed for all of us, and the walking tours that took place throughout the cemetery.
Yeah, but now, as you can see right here, it's gone. The cemetery also changed the wording on its website, removing references about their sacrifice for racial justice.
So, some pages still exist, but they've been gutted of content. A key phrase originally stating that Black service members, quote, fought for racial justice was altered to remove any reference to racial struggle. This has been going on for a long time, so I'm not surprised, but the extent they're going is just, it's what they do. This follows similar purges at the Pentagon, where pages on Navajo code talkers, without whom we would not have won World War II, have been erased, as have been images of Iwo Jima flag raiser Ira Hayes. Why? Because he's Native American, and a Black Medal of Honor recipient, also erased, being redirected to misleading error pages. Critics argue that deleting these pages distorts history, deletes it, and disrespects the contributions of minority service members. Some pages, like one honoring the Japanese-American 442nd Regimental Combat Team, have been restored after a public outcry, but the broader purge continues under Donald's directive. Of course it does, because who can keep up? That's the point. Keep us outraged. Keep us focused on this while they do that over there. It's impossible. So we have to focus on the most fundamental things they're doing and figure out how to stop them. Unfortunately, because as we all know, and as they know too, representation matters. Erasing representation, that is landing a blow from which we may not recover. But they're going to do it no matter what, unless we stop this other stuff that is enabling all of this. So, I keep saying so. Sorry. Ever hear of Trump derangement syndrome? It doesn't have anything to do with me. It's what the right calls the left's totally reasonable and rational and fact-based hatred of Donald Trump, or hatred of what he does. Let's put it that way, right? Because it's not personal for most of us. So yeah, they're Donald and his allies, minions, enablers, sycophants, are trying to redefine the term Trump derangement syndrome. It's kind of isn't funny, but it's totally in my wheelhouse. So, you know, as a mental illness, like they want this thing in the diagnostic and statistical manual put out every however many years by the American Psychiatric Association, like the compendium of all the mental illnesses. They want this added to that, even though one of the key backers of this absolutely insane. You know what? Here's a new mental illness for you. Anybody who thinks that the Trump derangement syndrome should be included in the DSM as a mental illness has a mental illness. That's my new definition of a mental illness. One of the key backers is facing serious criminal charges. So that would be Minnesota Senate Republican, a Minnesota Senate Republican. He was arrested because he's a Republican, and I think this has become compulsory behavior if you want to be an elected official in the Republican Party, for allegedly trying to solicit sex from a minor. According to Bloomington police, detectives communicated with 40-year-old Minnesota Republican State Senator Justin Eichhorn of Grand Rapids. He thought he was talking with a 16-year-old girl. And they caught him. And good. But since that is now the kind of behavior that defines what it means to be a man in the Republican Party, don't expect them to pay for it. Donald isn't just... Actually, I'm not sure if you've heard this, but Donald has decided recently to take away Secret Service protection for Biden's children. Joe Biden's children, Hunter and Ashley. I'm not entirely sure we can comprehend how dangerous that is. It would have been dangerous while Biden was still president. But now that Donald is running rampant throughout our country, it is incomprehensibly dangerous, especially since he's constantly endangering them publicly, not just by his, especially Hunter Biden, his vicious, unfounded attacks on Hunter Biden, a private citizen, by the way. He's also been publicly disclosing their locations, which last I checked was illegal. So he declared this on his failing social media site that the loss of Secret Service protection was effective immediately. And then he said this, quote, he was referring to Hunter Biden. He is currently vacationing in, of all places, South Africa, where the human rights of people have been strenuously questioned, unquote. Take a look.
Because we've now learned that President Trump has ordered the Secret Service to end its protection for former President Biden's children, Hunter and Ashley Biden.
It is common for family members of former presidents to have Secret Service protection. Actually, typically they get it for up to 6 months after their parents leave office. But it's up to the discretion of the president. Typically, a spouse gets Secret Service protection, but for other family members, it's at the discretion of the president. This all comes after Hunter Biden. There was a ruling last week that a judge allowed him to drop a lawsuit against a former White House aide that had digitized the contents of his infamous laptop. So Hunter Biden was making the argument in court that he didn't have the funds to continue with that lawsuit, although certainly now President Trump pointing out that he is vacationing in South Africa and calling it, quote, ridiculous that he has up to 18 Secret Service member is in his detail.
Yep. That's where we're heading. And if you think it's going to stop with Hunter and Ashley Biden, the Biden family, well, maybe we should meet Kash Patel, who is the keeper of Donald's enemies list. It's a list he's been compiling for a very, very, very long time. And given what a thin-skinned, vicious creep he is, it's probably getting longer every day. But, you know, he's probably out to get some people more than others. Because he takes everything personally. because for him, everything is personal. So let's end there. Because I don't know about you guys, I could use a little emotional support moment. I confess, I don't know what it is. So I'm actually looking forward to it because I got kind of weary of Googling, was there any good news today? And having a 404 error show up on my laptop. So I'm really looking forward to this because I need it. This is, well, I mean, I'm sold already because it's about rockhopper penguins meeting beluga whales. I mean, play the clip. The wave sounds in the soundtrack were a nice touch. Why will they not let them swim together? Beluga whales are vegetarians. I mean, I don't know. They don't eat penguins. They would have so much fun. Or not. I'm not sure. But they're doing a great job. See? Nothing needs to divide us if we're only open-minded enough. And we're not fascist Republicans. All right, let me get to your comments and questions. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm dealing with two different trackpads, and it's confusing. I'm still getting used to the new setup, which is awesome, by the way. Okay. Look who's in the house. Suki56. Thank you so very much. That's awesome. Comment, Mary. You and the team keep me from stepping over the edge. At first, I thought you were referring to Eric Fromm, but this makes much more sense. Wow, that's great to hear. A little surprising given where I'm standing vis-a-vis the edge, but that's really great. If Donald loves Putin so much, maybe they should get married. Donald likes macho men so much. Just saying, well, it's soon going to be illegal for that to happen here. So if they're going to get married, they better do it right quick. Just me. Thank you. As always, great to have you here tonight. Comment. Maybe Americans need a Not in My Name campaign, something that was done after the Christchurch massacre. Yeah, Americans need a lot of things. That would be a good start. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much awful stuff going on that we do need sort of some overarching theme that's just going to resonate. Something like that works. So I'm with you. Suki56 again. You're always outdoing yourself. Thank you. Comment, Mary. Maybe Canadians need to turn off the electricity, gas, oil, and metals now. Just saying. I think Canada needs to do whatever it needs to do. Honestly, it's odd. We haven't heard about tariffs in a bit, so I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means anything, but Canada has to, if necessary, do exactly what Doug Ford, who's the Premier of Ontario, was talking about last week or the week before that. Like 1.5 million homes or something in New York, Wisconsin, and one other border state get their power from them. And they could flip that switch off at any moment. And that if Donald keeps up this insanity of attacking our ally, soon to be former, then yeah, Canada needs to play hardball too. And the difference is, if you listen to Canadian politicians talk about the actions, the retaliatory actions they feel compelled to take, it pains them. It pains them to hurt the American people in a way that it does not pain Donald Trump and the rest of his fascist regime. His Divine Scattered, thank you very much for that. Very generous of you. Comment, PSA, Wisconsinites. Musk is trying to buy the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Vote Susan Crawford. That is correct. He is indeed. And we know how important that race is because of the last time. So make sure that if you're in Wisconsin, make sure you're apprised of that situation. It is vitally, vitally important that Republicans do not take back that majority. It would be awful. Meme on Canadian in the house. Thank you so very much. Comment, hello from Canada. Hello. And you guys rock. Thank you. My sister lives in the States with her Asian and trans partner. She is delusional and says I'm being alarmist about it all. How to get through the people right now? Well, I think this is literally, and I don't like saying this, but I think this is the only way. They have to find out. There was a lot leading up to this finding out part, and we're seeing it happen every day. People are like, hey, I voted for him. I'm a good guy. I only wanted those people to get hurt. Yeah, well, it doesn't work like that. So that's where we're heading. And I think that is might be what it takes, because one, some of these people are horrible. They're fascists, they're misogynists, they're Christian nationalists, et cetera, et cetera. And some people have been so bombarded with disinformation for years now that they cannot see the difference between reality and what's being sold to them. That's harder. Telecom, thank you very much. We really appreciate that. Comment, thoughts on France wanting the Statue of Liberty returned? Caroline Leavitt, of course, screamed no when asked. Yeah, and she said it in that really annoying way of hers, too. I hope Musk keeps his paws off my Social Security. Keep on keeping on. Yeah, we will. Not going anywhere. Well, I mean, I don't think it's something that can happen. It would be unwieldy and heavy. And I don't, maybe they could just regift it to New York City. Just make it ours. I'm of two minds. I understand it completely, because the United States of America no longer represents the things that the Statue of Liberty stands for. Give me your poor, your tired, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. What was I saying? Breathe free? No, fuck that. Oh, sorry. I did something I wasn't supposed to do. No, we don't care about them. That's America now. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. No, walk around in the dark. We don't care about you. New York represents those things, though. So we would like to keep her. I like when I go down by the river, seeing the Statue of Liberty. It reminds me of things that maybe no longer exist in much of the country. But I understand the impulse of the French, for sure. Yeah, Musk definitely needs to keep his obscenely wealthy paws off of our Social Security. The question remains, who's going to stop him? Thus far, nobody seems to be stepping up. Obsessive Audio, Canada in the house. Thank you, as always, for everything you guys are doing. And I'm sorry. Vive la résistance, indeed. All right, I'm going to thank some super stickers. Cindy, thank you very much. Douglas, thank you as well. Janelle's, sorry, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you so very much for that. KJ Crafts, thank you as well. That one, Katie, thank you very much. Mariana, thank you as always. Nancy, thank you. That's great. Regina, thank you very much. And finally, that one, Katie, thank you very much, Katie. Comment, Donald is the worst thing to happen to the world. I cannot disagree. Yeah, it brings me no joy to say that, but I cannot disagree. You could not have put together a worse worst human being in a laboratory. And people have tried. Okay. That does it for tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks to everybody watching on YouTube. Our tiny but dedicated little group of people who managed somehow to find us under the rubble over at Twitter. All of our Substackers who are watching the live stream. Love it that you guys are here as well. And to everybody watching the podcast. Your comments are phenomenal, so thank you for them. I apologize I'm not able to get to all of them, but there are a lot of them, and they're awesome. Of course, to all of our super stickers and everybody giving us gifts, I promise you that it is money well spent. We are guardians of your largesse, and we make sure that it goes to the most necessary things to help us get better at what we do, so we can help you get through this. Because it is a lot, and we know that it is. I mean, we feel it too, and we understand, and we so appreciate your willingness to spend time with us, even though I know it's not always easy. Thanks, of course, always to our moderators who have helped us create this community that matters so much to all of us. And of course, thank you to my extraordinary team. I try. I don't think I can adequately convey to everybody watching just how extraordinary not just the work is, but the task is, given how much things are shifting underneath our feet every single day and how much news is coming in, that these guys are able to do what they do with such skill, such grace, such equanimity. It just blows me away. So thanks, guys, for that. Okay. It's Tuesday, so I've heard. I will be back tomorrow night, which is Wednesday, if things continue to go according to plan, for Mary Trump Live at 6 p.m. Eastern. That's every weeknight, Monday through Friday. The nerds will be back on Thursday at 12 noon. And do not forget, please, that as I mentioned in the middle of the show, we're really trying to grow, and you're subscribing to the channel, which is free, helps us so much in terms of all sorts of things, including the algorithm, etc. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe. Sharing the videos helps us a lot as well. Liking them and sharing them, getting other people on board. And don't forget, we have videos dropping every day that are more targeted about some of the stories we think are the most important that you need to be kept up to date on. Okay, so that does it for me. I will see you guys tomorrow night. In the meantime, everybody, please stay safe and be kind. Peace. See ya. Bye.